My name is G.S. Brooks of the Average Movement, and I'm the founder of a program geared uh, to behavioral framing for high risk young people.
Diversified game. Learn how to start, run, and sustain your business.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, all the way from Indonesia, but he does business, and we're going to get into all of it in South Africa. So I had to put on my best South Africa drips. I was going to bring the shoes, but y'all know I don't wear shoes in the house. Then I had to represent Soweto. You can stand up. Sabona, stand up. But man, my bruv, G.S. Brooks, what's going on? Welcome to the Diversified Game.
Ain't too much going on. My fact, actually, it's a lot going on. Thank you for having me. My name is J.S. Brooks. From the At-Risk Movement, and we specialize in mentoring high-risk young people. And we started out in Brooklyn, and we moved to South Africa, Cape Town, and Johannesburg.
Okay, we're going to take it step by step because, you know, being from Harlem, but starting and living in Brooklyn now, we got to make sure we get it right. Like I told you, you know, when I got it wrong. How did you even get into the nonprofit space and into mentoring? Because you typically don't do that for the money, but when you get into it, you find out where the money is. I know I surely did, not for the nonprofit side, but the other side. And I said, oh, this is how y'all pull up in the Bentleys. And we were, you know, sometimes walking or pulling up in, you know, whatever we were pulling up in. But lay that out. How did you get started? Was it some tragedy? Was it just your environment you wanted to change? Let it know so that 14-year-old listening or that 44-year-old listening can say, oh, I want to do that too. And maybe they come work with you.
I'm glad you asked that question. That's a great question. So, to give you a little bit of backstory about myself, right? I was criminal justice involved myself as a child, right? I grew up on the east side of Harlem, 115th Street and Lexington Avenue, where I grew up in the crack era, right? I'm 49 years old, right? And
They don't believe it.
yeah, that's a whole fact. So I'm 49 years old. So in the late 80s, the early 90s, crack was ravishing the city, right? And so a lot of my friends was hustlers, right? And even though I never chose to start hustling at the time, you know, my family went through a tragedy, right? You know, I was a fighter. I was fighting a lot, you know, in the neighborhood. Back in those days, you had to know how to throw your hands in New York City, period. Or you was just like a victim, pretty much anywhere you went. And so I knew how to throw my hands a lot, to whereas I started even boxing a little bit, right? I would go down to the gym in the community center and I would box. So my hands was tight. So a lot of people in my neighborhood kind of, you know, I got a reputation for being nice with my hands at a young age, right? So all of the guys that I ran with was rough guys, right? But they were all older than me, right? And so they was in the game. They was hustling. They was selling drugs. I wasn't doing that. I was just hanging with them because they was hustling like right in front of my building, right? So to make a long story short, short story even shorter, you know, one day, you know, I used to get suspended a lot at school. And my mother was a working mother, single mother. My father was there, but he was always in and out. One day I got suspended and my mother sat me down, wanted to have a discussion with me, and then she informed me that she had HIV and she was dying and she was worried about me. She like, you keep getting in trouble. I keep hearing about you. And I need to know that you're gonna be okay. Right. I was a mama's boy. And so that traumatized me. That blew my mind. I wasn't prepared to hear that. And so I went to the bathroom, I cried,
You've tried it your way, but you're still in debt. Or maybe you're doing okay, but want to invest smarter, grow faster. MillionaireX.ai gives you real step-by-step strategies to ditch debt or stack wealth. Stop dreaming and start planning. Visit MillionaireX.ai today. I want you to be the next millionaire next door.
I looked in the mirror, I told myself I'm a man. And from that day on, I never accepted money from my mother no more. Instead of going to school the next day, which I enjoyed, uh, I went to the pop. I went to my friends. I'm like, yo, give me a pat. And that's what started my uh initial involvement with the criminal justice system, because I wasn't a good hustler, right? Uh I got caught nearly every time. Uh I my first charge was of a gun charge. It was at 12 years old. I was carrying a shotgun, and the police pulled me over. I had the shotgun in the sleeve of my leather jacket, and I thought nobody could see it, but I was a skinny kid, about like maybe 86 pounds, 88 pounds, and I'm running around with a shotgun. And so the police caught me, and I started doing time. Spofford. I graduated from Spofford to Rikers Island. I graduated from Rikers Island to Clinton, and then to Attica. I was one of the first bloods in New York City, one of the first adolescent bloods in New York City when it came to the city, because it was a war between the Latin Kings and the Bloods, and the Latin Kings did not like black people all of a sudden, right? So that's how I got pulled into it. Because I came from Spanish Harlem, where I had just as much black friends as I had Spanish friends, right? And so when I found out that they was racist against black people, I'm like, what? And then I found out that they didn't like blood. So I'm like, all right, so I'm blood now, and then it just went on from there. I got a pretty huge reputation, with that. I became one of the superiors of the Bloods at a young age. But eventually I end up with 5 years in a box for inciting a riot in Clinton Yard. And so with that 5 years, that was like my redemption period, right? I started reading everything I could get my hands on: psychology, philosophy, Egyptology. I love Black history. I love about it was a book named Assata, or autobiography by Assata Shakur. She was one of my heroes, and she just died on the 25th. And then there was like George Jackson, Angela Davis. I'm reading all of their stories, and I'm seeing myself. And I never got that history as a young person about all of, the black people that struggled for our freedom. And I was thinking, like, damn, if I would have knew this when I was a kid, I would have chose to be a revolutionary, then went down this route, right? And so at that point, I gained a true love for my people. I started teaching my brothers while I was inside. I retired. I can't say I dropped my flag like these young boys did, because they have different reasons for why they do what they do. But me, it was my enlightenment that told me I can no longer do this to my people and no longer behave this way. Right. That didn't take my heart. I've always had a lot of courage. And so I just wanted to direct my attention toward the people that deserved it, which was our oppressors. Right. And so um even inside, I wrote 3 books while I was in prison, while I was in that box. I wrote Checkmate. I wrote a couple of other novels, Forgive You Not, and Hustlers. And I designed like 3 business proposals, and that's where I started designing fashion as well, right? And that's what uh made a history of me caring about these young people that's caught up in in the streets. Because when I was young, I didn't have that type of mentor, that I could relate to, right? That was redirecting me, and not only redirecting me, part of my organization is also to give them vocational skills and also give them access, to a legitimate income, right? And one of the so now let me bring you a little more closer to when I come home. I started mentoring young people for probation, for the probation department with in connection with another organization that I was working with. And I was doing one-on-one mentoring with young people on probation. And they gave me all of the toughest cases. And even though I had the history I had, I still was somewhat intimidated, right? Because I know I'm dealing with a young person's hands. I mean, a young person, life, right, is in my hands. And so I was a little bit worried not to misdirect them or lead them in the wrong way. But they were attracted to me. They loved me, right? And I loved them as well. And that's why I was doing the work. So a lot of the young people, some of the work, I'm talking about in the Bronx, right, where we had the highest rate of gun violence in the city. It beat Brooklyn out, because when I was younger, Brooklyn had the highest rate of gun violence, but nowadays it's the Bronx. And um, so I got a very good success rate with the young men on probation. Then I went on to learn more about how to facilitate groups, right? And how to do what they call CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, MRT, moral recognition training, motivational interviewing, and things that are like, right? I went into my learning curve and I learned these different ways on how to engage young people to do behavioral redirection. And so that's when I kind of really got my voice with speaking to multiple people in groups, because I was shy when I was a kid, right? But after I started learning how to do AVP and all of the things that I've learned, I just basically I really did well. I did so good that in the first year we started a pilot program in the Bronx with the district attorney's office. Um, it was a gun prevention program. So in order to be considered for the program, you had to have been arrested for your first gun charge, right? And you had to be within the ages of 18 to 27, right? The first year, we succeeded with 86% of a success rate, right? By the next year, I was given my own cohort, and excuse me, and I received.
Are you a successful entrepreneur or one in training? You've got the vision, but do you have the right partner to build your brand, your team, and your future online and off? At cprfirm.com, we offer expert consulting, financial guidance, and life coaching because we believe in doing life with our clients. After all, what is it for a man to gain the world and lose his soul? Founded by Callan Cash Coleman, we help our clients not only succeed, but plan to retire rich. Your business deserves the best. Start building your legacy today at cprfirm.com.
Given by who? Lay out going through all that steps of the process, because one person or one deal can change your life. How are you given a cohort? How are you able to lead these things? Was it just, was there any particular person or organization that, gave you the game and showed you the ropes?
Absolutely. Like I was saying, I was working for different organizations when I first came home, right? The last time I did.
How do you get that? Because someone just came home a year ago. nobody's dealing with me. Nobody will even answer my email, and they won't even let me in the building. And they're supposed to be for, what did you do? Did you dress different, talk different? Especially with no parents or no parental support.
Well, I had already did the internal work while I was inside, right? And so then I started just making connections with people. I had a friend on the inside that I was working with. She had her own organization. She was from out in Syracuse, and she had an organization called Fall Forward, right? And when I was inside, I was drawing for her organization, and I was writing articles for her organization as well, right? So when I came home, I still maintained that relationship and that connection, right? So I was doing different jobs. Like I became um a the a manager on a service line, and I was doing that work. And my friend called me, and we had a discussion. She was like, "What you doing now?" And I'm like, "Yo, I'm doing this work." She was like, "Have you ever heard of credible messenger work?" And I said, "No, I never heard the term." And she was like, "That's right along your alley. You should be doing this." She like, "I'm gonna introduce you to some people." And she gave me some information. It was an organization called CCFY, Community Connections for Youth. And that was in the Bronx as well. So I went out there and I hooked up with those guys, and I was allowed to be in groups with them. And start see how I was seeing how they was uh engaging the young people, right, in the Bronx. And I fell in love with it automatically, because it was basically, have you ever heard the term credible messenger?
I have not.
Okay, so a credible messenger, that's really big in the city, and it's expanding all over the nation right now. It's pretty much saying you have the lived experience, right? So you probably was in a gang, you probably was a drug dealer, you probably ran crews, right? You probably went up north and went to prison, right? This is what they that makes you credible to the young people that's criminal justice involved, right? Um, it's saying I lived the experience. I've been where you're at before, and this is what I'm doing now, and redirecting them and re-guiding them. It helps, right, with being able to make that connection for them to be able to resonate with you. But I've since then removed myself from the credible messenger term and moved on to calling myself a community messenger, right? Because I realize it's not about actually where you've been, because a lot of the times I noticed that a lot of credible messengers glorify that lifestyle, right? And we don't want to glorify that lifestyle with young people that we're trying to redirect from that lifestyle, right? And so it have to be skill based. And so to bring you a little bit more closer to where we are now, is during COVID, nobody knew what to do with the young men in none of the organizations that I was working for. But I'm a writer by trade, right? I got about 3 published books right now, and another 3 uh, um, textbooks, right, for young people. And so I have a lot of content, right? So I was like, so I could do some Zoom meetings with these guys, right? And so I started doing that, and I said, hold up, let me start my own organization, right? And that's when the at-risk movement came to life. I started, excuse me, I started holding online meetings and groups with a lot of young people from the community, and with a lot of my friends, right? A lot of my friends is well known, right? They have a lot of influence even to this day, right? And so I would bring them on, and they'd be like, "Oh wow, you know him?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's my guy," right? And so I would get them to see these dudes that was still gangbanging in another light, right? And so I was mentoring the mentors, and I was mentoring the influencers, because they all respect me from where I've been in my life. And they're proud of me for making that transition. Right. And so that's how the at-risk movement came to exist. And then uh we started a program, a prison program, where we was teaching guys in prison that already have influence, right, that are gang leaders, right. We was giving them our material because what I started doing was producing my own material based on the experiences that I've had, not only my personal experience but also my experience as a mentor, right. And all of the workshops that resonated with the young people, I put into a facilitator's guide to teach other people, right, other people from the community, how to mentor high risk young people, right. And so I took it into the prisons, and we, just from being in the groups, we have a Green Haven correctional facility group happening right now. And just from being in those groups, these men have saved CO's lives from being stabbed up. And we was just training them so they could have a skill that they could utilize when they return to society to make money, right, and to start a career, right? And instead of, like, because when you come home from prison, it's rough, right? And unless you have a skill set, right? You know, the pool of jobs for former prisoners is very, you know.
Ain't none. Ain't none. Unless you go through the electrician program, is something that we need more of. But what somebody is hearing, and I want to make it very clear, because you being from Harlem, you being and going through all the boroughs and knowing everything, somebody will try to discredit their own self and say, oh, he must have known Dang. He must have known Killer. He must have known so-and-so, and they gave him a bag when he came home. Can you talk about how you got into what I assume is government contracting and RFPs and grants and everything, or was it privately funded? Because I want someone to kind of see the path and say, hold on, I need to link up with you because I'm in New York too, go through your program, and if there's any certification or any training I can get, I need it now because mom's is about to kick me out. Girl already kicked me out. I'm in the shelter. So can you let them know how you did it? And again, if you had an angel or a VC, it's all good, but give them those steps too, because I want them to really get that clear.
Okay, so there's a couple of things I could speak to your question, right? I absolutely understand exactly what you was asking me, and I resonate with that as well, because we do have certifications that we give out, right? They go through a process of training with us and become mentors. Like right now, we have a contract with John Jay College, and we have interns that we got coming from John Jay College, and we're teaching them our methods, right? So to speak to that is it's a lot about who you know, right? And being that I was in, the business for multiple years, I got to start establishing relationships, right? And through establishing relationships, we get information, we get informed, right? This is the way we was able to secure the Safe in the City grant from MOCJ, right? So we became a vendor with MOCJ, the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, right? Um, and then we went forward on to doing uh uh um groups and trainings with the probation department, right? So the probation department called my team in to train them. We like, and this happened from an online thing, and that's why it's very important to do things online. I got a friend. His name is G Depp. He used to be a rapper for Bad Boy, where Bad Boy was, yeah, up and running. It was big, right?
Money. We ain't explaining G-Dep. Everybody who needs to know knows. That's like saying, nah, they know G-Dep. If they don't, he was already on fish and spaghetti. Come on now.
That's a fact. So yeah, so G Dep is from my neighborhood, right? So I knew him as a kid growing up, right? Way before he became famous. In fact, I was in the box doing a 5-year bid, 5-year sentence to SHU when I first heard him over the radio. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I know that voice. You know what I mean? And um, so he had got to deal with Bad Boy and everything like that. And so, unfortunately, everybody knows what happened to him. He had did a crime back in the days, got turned himself in. And that's what like hovered over him, with his success, right? That was the black cloud over him that he knew what happened in the past, and he didn't want to be famous, right? And so he turned himself in and did some time. While he was inside, I had came home. I started my organization. We was doing online groups, and he called in while he was in prison, right, to the group, and we was doing a group based on drill rap, right? Because drill rap became a problem in New York City, right? These young boys was killing each other, right? And mocking each other online, making raps about each other, talk about I'm smoking on such and such, and that guy just got killed. And so it'll hurt their friends, and we're not emotionally regulated in the community. So they like, yo, we retaliating, right? So they go and kill the dude that was making rap videos about their friend dying. And then it just was a revolving circle. And when I came home, I'm like, what is this I'm hearing about? And they like this drill rap. So I called in, a few of my people that, have influence. And we had a conversation about it. The probation department seen that, right? And they wanted me to train the supervisors, probation officers, and some of the rest of their staff on how to engage high risk people. So you could get funding, right, from a bunch of different means and a bunch of different manners. Where what the at-risk movement is more focused on in regards to funding is what we focus on more so than anything else is philanthropy, because what I've learned from being in the business for so long is once the government gets a hold of it, right, they start to pick at it to the point that it's no longer the services that you originally started with. And it kind of restrains you from being able to actually do the work. And this is the reason why we are very independent. This is the reason why we started different businesses, right? That's not a part of, right, the at-risk movement nonprofit organization, because we got 3 different businesses. We got the At-Risk Movement LLC, which holds all of our intellectual properties, all of our books, all of our textbooks, all of our curricula, and then we deliver our methods through, right, the nonprofit arm of our organization, which is called the At-Risk Movement Economic Development, and that's how we became a 501c3, right? But then we also have other businesses like Evolve, the social intelligence.
Evolve. We're gonna get to Evolve, but I want to go a little deeper, because you're doing this in New York. You said something that very few people who do government contracting, especially in your space, will admit: how when you can stop a murder. And I lived in Springfield, Mass for a little bit, and I've seen organizations from Oakland, where I'm from, to Springfield, when you can stop a murder by one phone call, but then the government wants to get in the middle and tell you, nah, but you guys can't do it like that. The funding is good, but if you can't stop the murder because you can't say what you need to say, can you go and let them know just how difficult, one, it is to get into that system? Once you're in, you're good. But also, once you're dealing with, real killers, real criminals, what did you mean by they try to stop you? Or they try to transform what you're doing? Like they want you to put them a pat on the back when they need a foot in their butt sometimes. They need a OG to be called and say, hey, if you do that, you can't walk down to the store. Can you go a little deeper into that? Because people need to know.
Hello, everyone. Join us on an exciting journey with Explore the World Cameroon. London and Sydney go take you explore Cameroon, the heart of Africa. Experience the vibrant culture, nature, and traditions from Yaoundé market to rainforest adventures. Every page na new discovery. Enjoy the Cameroonian food, music, and wildlife with our explorers. This book na true celebration of Cameroon spirit. Get your copy now. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and through your library and bookstores via Ingram's Park. Don't miss this adventure.
It's exactly what you said, brother. What's exactly happening is these federal government funding and as well as city government funding, they start to pick out an organization, right, until it's no longer the purpose of which you had that organization for, right? They start to restrain you, right? And that's one of the reasons why we needed to be independent, right? A lot of our work is tough work, but you got to understand that the government is based upon control, right? And what I learned is that, by us being so successful, because when credible messengers, right, came out, originally it was being picked up by everybody because they were seeing the success rate was over 80%, over 85% of the success rate were redirecting these young people. So they started to put um uh, 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 things in the way of us being able to do the real work.
Tell one thing, because somebody's battling this right now or trying to get in the game and they don't even know what they're coming. If you can just say one thing that, was getting in the way, that was like, I'm about to stop 5 people from being killed this weekend or something like that. Give the
That's good. They want to control the narrative. So what they do is they use these other organizations, right? Because they're financially funded, like by BJA, which is the federal government branch, right, for funding these type of programs, right? They start to put a lot of different rules and guidelines on how you're going to get the money, right? And then they change it altogether by changing the direction, right? They'll say, okay, well, we're no longer funding that anymore. Right now, we're funding women and violence, right? And so everybody that was getting jobs, right, as a credible messenger, right, no longer are getting jobs as a credible messenger because now the jobs have shifted because the funding has shifted, right? And so these organizations, in order to keep with the funding, they shift with whatever the government is requiring at the time, right? So it went from we're going to be funding you from killing, stopping the killings and stopping the murders on the block, right? Then they shifted from that and said, all right, well, we're not funding that right now. We're funding a, 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 a objective against homelessness, right? We want to go on a campaign because we realizing that so many of minorities are homeless. So now now you need a whole new different staff with a whole new different skill set, right? And so this is how they start to control the narrative by what they decide to fund for that fiscal year, right? And so what we end up learning is a lot of brothers and sisters end up out of a job, right? Because of those fundings. And now with Trump in, right, he defunded all of it, right? All of the credible messenger organizations, he took the funding from all of that, right? We're still
Federal. It was all federal money. That it wasn't state.
now some of his state as well, but the federal is where you get the big money, right? So, for example, in the bigger organization that I was working for, at one time, they because of my work, actually, right? Remember I said the 86% success rate in the pilot program, right? When we got that, right, the feds took a look at what we were doing and they said, how did y'all do that? Right? So they funded us an additional $3 million, right? On top of what we was already receiving from MOCJ, the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, right? But when they decided,
I'm gonna say Eric Adams, so they know, because he won't be in that seat too much longer. You can let us know if that's a bad name or a good name to you, but I don't,
well, before Eric Adams was even became the mayor, right? I had met Eric Adams on several different occasions. We were protesting together, right? Downtown, because what we used to do is if a young person got shot in the Bronx, right, we would go as an organization to where that young person got shot, and we would call for the community to cease fire. We wanted our presence in the community to know that we was there. We recognized this young person was from our community, and we want to stop the killing. And then we start, providing services for other young people in those communities to redirect them from that type of behavior, right? During one of those uh, um, shooting responses, is what we called it. I met Eric Adams. Me and him was standing right next to each other. I didn't know who he was. At the time, he was the Brooklyn. Uh, um, he was he was something for the Brooklyn. He was already in politics, but he was a superintendent for the Brooklyn or something like that, right? And me and him is sitting, and me and him start talking, and I was feeling it. I'm like, yo, I kind of dig you, man. I didn't know that he was who he was until he took the podium, right? And then he started speaking, and we went from there. So I met him again when he became the mayor, right? I seen him on the street doing some outreach on the street. Me and him took a picture. I even got it on our website, right?
It's on the site, and I want people to look in the description and go check out the site, because there's a lot of information, including the books there. But I don't like any politician or politricking. And Trump isn't too far. We live in that county, but we know things aren't going to turn out the way he thinks they are in the long run, right? What was your opinion on Eric Adams? Since you know him, since you took the picture, since he was protesting, were you able to get more money or keep the same money when he was there?
No, he definitely supported us. He gave us a certificate of recognition for the work that we were doing, right? We got that on the site as well. We are still vendors with the mayor's office, right? And we will remain to be vendors because um when they did give us the grants, right? We did the actual work that we said that we was going to do, right? And we did it in a spectacular manner, and they recognized that. But we are no longer fishing for those type of government grants at this time, right? We are doing it for the people. We want the people to invest in their own success, right? And so that's one of the reasons why we started a subscription based, right? Thing where mothers that have young people that they know need a male figure in their life, or they know that our criminal justice involved, or they're leading towards that route to get them somebody that could mentor them, and we wanted to make it affordable for mothers, right? Instead of the Birkin bag, instead of the Gucci bag, right? especially your
kids, the cars they can't afford, the nails. I hear you.
start investing more into your own people and into our own growth and development, right? It's supposed to be for us, by us, right? If we keep depending on outside entities to do the work that we need in our communities, we'll be waiting forever for that to happen because they could pull it whenever they decide to, right? So when they seen, just like what they did with the credible messenger movement, when they seen that it was doing too well, they had to pull it because it was interfering with other entities that that they provide funding for, like the prison industrial complex, right? You know, they thought that we was gonna fail, right? They didn't know that we would actually be able to redirect these young people, right? And so now that we directed it, they don't have people, right, going to the streets hustling. So they don't got people to arrest no more and send through the system, right? So they had to defund that, right? So it's incumbent upon us, right, to take it into our own hands. And so we've been we've been lucky enough to get, you know, philanthropists, right? We done went to the Hamptons. We done had uh um groups being done in the Hamptons around people that actually have money, that care about, you know, humanity, right? And that's our goals, and that's where we've been with obtaining funding and then utilizing our businesses to also fund the services that we provide. And that's the reason why we sell books, because some of the profit goes into the services that we provide.
Before we talk about the profit, 'cause I want to go into and everything you're doing in South Africa, you've pretty much laid out one of my key questions I ask every guest. What is your community give back that you're doing or that you would like to do? You're already been doing it, but tell us if there anything else in that nonprofit space that you'd like to do in the future or that you haven't mentioned, and how can the community help you? Maybe it's money, maybe it's just showing up to City Hall. But before we go into the real profit, can you let that be known?
Well, absolutely. The community could definitely help by spreading awareness, right, about what we're doing, by learning the dispute resolution and the dispute solutions uh that we utilize, right, to reduce violence, right, to de-escalate violence in our communities, setting up their own dispute solution or services in their city and towns. Like, for example, I got a brother out in Ohio right now, right? He's originally from Harlem as well, but he moved out to Ohio. So we're looking to expand the at-risk movement into Ohio because they have a violence problem out there as well, right? So learning the skills, right? Setting up, right? Excuse me, setting up uh, uh, a service where they could serve the young people in their communities. We always could use donations, right? Donations is what moves the movement along.
You said donations? Y'all building a school?
Huh?
I said you said donations. Y'all building a school?
Are we building a school? Well,
I'm being funny on that one, but
no. We not Umar Johnson. We not doing that. We actually doing the work, and we can show you the work, right? Because we do it online, right, as well. So, and yeah, that was crazy. You're funny. So yeah, we could use donations for the services that we provide to our young people, right? Like our branch in South Africa, the funding is horrible out there, right? Especially when it comes to the government. The government is not trying to fund social programs like that, right? And so, you need the people to get involved, right? To want to see a difference and a change in their community, right? And so, yes, absolutely, funding is great. Subscribing is great, to our subscriptions online, learning about how to utilize our material, how to utilize our methods, which are very unique methods, and doing that so we can have safer communities.
Okay. Safer communities. And I'm sure in some of those books, you talk about, that and what can be done. Because I don't want to give them everything. I can go Joe Rogan style, but one day, God willing, we'll do this in person. But the safer communities come because the community wants them, safer. They want to get involved. Can you let the person who's listening who says, I want to get certified with you, can I take it? Whether I'm in New York or somewhere else, is it a certification? And do I have to go get, my MSW or, to be able to counsel people and talk to people? Because I've done this type of work, right? I've done it. So I know sometimes you really have a passion for it, but if you don't have a certain education, they're only going to pay you so much. And even if you have a doctorate degree, they still don't pay you enough, just like our teachers. Our mental health workers, our counselors who are doing this type of work don't get paid enough because it's a lot that is on you. So let the people know that too. When they come to you, what can they ask you? How long does that certification take? Can they do it via Zoom like it was during the pandemic? Give us the game on that before we get into the profit, please.
So absolutely. We do have options where they could learn online, right? And take their tests online. We do have mentoring workshops that they could do. We have tutorials that they could take. And then when they finish, they can get uh, um, certificates of completion. No, they do not. They do not need a MSW or Masters in Social Work, right, in order to utilize these skills. In fact, uh, uh, when I got into it, it was mostly experience based, right? Once you have experience, right, with engaging young people, that's how you'll be able to be effective, right, with the work. So that doesn't just cancel you out not having like a degree, right, in order to be able to do this work. A lot of the times, if you don't have a specific type of degree, you could take different trainings, right? And that's all across the board, not only with my organization, but in organizations that's doing similar work, right? Excuse me. They have a thing called pure violence. Have you ever heard of that term?
I've taken so many things, but I don't know. It's been a while since I've been in it, but I'm getting back into it. And so I'm even thinking, for the people that I know that I can share this interview with and say, hey, check them out. Whether they have a PsyD right now, but they say, hey, I want to do some more of that work we used to do when we got paid less than $30,000 at the Phoenix Academy or at Sisters of Providence, right? So I haven't heard of it, but give us the game. And if there's any easy way for you to direct us to either your website, a link tree, because when the people start asking me, all I'm going to do is push them to you, my bro. I don't want to get it mixed up. So, if there's any, yeah.
Absolutely. So yes, cure violence, right? And they are ones that are heavily funded by the government, right? You could even get certified to do cure violence, right, where you are, right? One of the things about cure violence is also experience based, right? They have what they call violence interrupters, right? And basically, what a violence interrupter would do is it would be about three of them, right, canvassing the neighborhood that might be a high risk or target neighborhood for violence. And if they see people about to engage in violence, they would approach them and try to de-escalate the violence, right? They also do what we call um hospital interventions, right? Whereas if somebody got shot, they would go to the hospital, speak with the victim, speak with the victim's family and the victim's friends, right? To prevent a retaliation, right? And that's a really big thing, right? It started out in Chicago, right? You know about everybody heard about the gang violence out in Chicago, right? Um, the gun violence out in Chicago. Chicago started cure violence. However, um, it was I'm forgetting the man's name. It was a white man. I don't know if he was white, Greek, or something like that. But you know, he did a study on violence, right? And his study was based on he also has studied other things, and he put up the study of violence and contrasted to the study of disease, and noticed that it had a similar spread, right? That disease spread in a similar way that violence spread. And he said, since there's a cure for disease, there also has to be a cure for violence. And that's how they got the name cure violence, right? And they started using it, and it's been very effective in Chicago, right? It started out in Chicago, and then we adopted it in New York City, similar to drill rap. And it's funny, like drill rap started out in Chicago. We started doing it in New York City, right? And it's crazy how the both go hand in hand with the violence and the drill rap, right? Um, so the CDC are one of their primary funders of cure violence, right? And so one of my issues with that is that um I know my community way better than an outsider, right? I know what my community needs, right? And so that's the reason why with the at-risk movement, we we created our own curriculum. We created our own textbooks. We created our own stuff from scratch based on our experiences from being in the street, right? Being to prison, being on probation and parole, right? So also our experiences with mentoring young people that are in the streets, mentoring young people that's on probation, mentoring young people that's in ATI, which is alternative to incarceration programs, right? So a lot of our material is based on those experiences and what worked, right? And so, you know, so one of the things is, and one of the reasons why it's being done is because it's also uh, a economic uh, 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 development thing with our community, right? Whereas in Cure Violence, you know, every book that is purchased, every manual that's purchased, you know, the lion's share is going outside of the community, right? With the at-risk movement, every book that's purchased is being reinvested back into the community. You understand what I'm saying? Um, and that's why I find that it's most important, you know, to do things of that nature.
What with the certification, and you know, we understand people have to be able to take it. They can get certified, and then just to be clear, doesn't guarantee you a job with you or with anybody else, but you guys, I'm sure, have an army of people who can help somebody get their foot in the door, right? Certifications help get your foot in the door.
Absolutely, absolutely. It always helped because one of the things that all these organizations, right, um, uh, want from their workers is training, they want to know that you've been trained in certain different things and being trauma informed, right? Even training with first aid, mental health first aid, right? They want you to have the Mozzie training, right? They want you to have a bunch of these trainings under your belt. And I'm not against that because by you being more informed, you're able to service, right, the people that need it the most, right? Even at an even greater, right, level, right? So if you only just knew one particular thing, then they couldn't call on you for other things, right? And so even with our interns, right, that we have now from John Jay College, we are having them not only take our trainings but also going to other organizations and getting a volunteer experiences, right, by shadowing them, right? Also going to other organizations to learn how to do stop the bleed, right? Because a lot of our young people, you know, they might get shot, right? And we've even done this with our young people um in our ATI programs, right? Where we bring in, right, instructors to teach how to stop the bleed, right? Because one of their homeboys might get shot and they waiting for the ambulance to come while he's bleeding out, right? So they've been taught how to stop the bleeding so help could come and get him into a hospital, right? And so we want everybody that we mentor or that we train to have multiple skills. And that's what we do. Even things that we don't do directly. For example, we haven't developed a curriculum yet for a drug treatment, right? Even though we engage a lot with a lot of people that are on drugs, right? We would outsource that work with partnering organizations, right? And that's very important to have because a lot of the times you might have a young person that you're mentoring and you start noticing, his eyes is always red, right? His mouth is always dry, right? uh he's not paying attention. He's always all over the place, right? You're like, yo, man, do you have a problem? You know what I mean? Is it something that you need some help with? Right? And then you could introduce them to those things, and it's easier coming from us, right? Than it would be coming from a counselor, right? They receive it better coming from us, so to speak.
Yeah, because you're credible. Yeah, and you know, and certified in that. Before I go into the money talk, I want to know, because you know, you can bring the tone up and down, up and down. How did your mother, and her disease that, you know, still there's no cure, there's still, you know, there's treatment, and you have people walking around. I hear people say, oh no, you don't have to worry about that anymore, I'm on prep or whatever, that the latest thing. How did that impact you dealing with women, dating, having sex? Were you more cautious? Were were you scared? Because some people don't know anybody who's had it, so it just sounds like one of those things. How did that impact your mindset to this day and growing up?
Wow, that is a good question. I don't even think nobody ever even asked me that question before in my 49 years. Um, so it definitely had a huge impact on me. Number one, I was very, very conscious of protecting myself using condoms, right? Um, I used to go to the clinic all of the time, getting free condoms, even when I was a young boy, when I was 16, because I got sexually active when I was very young, right? So I used to have a drawer full of condoms, literally, right? And so that definitely had an impact on me uh, uh having sexual intercourse, right?
That was your mom, not Kid and Play movies, because you know House Party had us all having them. You know that.
Yeah, but I love that movie too. House Party. So yeah, I I only got a couple of more minutes. I gotta jump on this next call, but listen. So number one, I started to become very cautious on who I would engage with in sex with as well. Um, and I still had I had a lot of women. I was popular, right? I was a money guy, right? When I was in the street, they used to call me G Money, right? And I got that nickname because older guys would challenge me, and they like, yo, you ain't making no money, because I was always my own boss, right? When I was around about 14 years old, I was buying my own work from uptown. I was already I was tough. I knew how to fight, right? So nobody could tell me nothing, right? So I knew where the connect was uptown. So I used to go buy the drugs myself, bring it to the block, and start hustling. They be like, yo, who you hustling for? I'm like, it's my work. You know what I mean? And they couldn't say nothing because they didn't want to get embarrassed, right? Because if we got to fighting and they lost the fight from a little dude, you know what I mean? They credibility in the hood might be suspect, right? And so one day, this one guy, he was a big drug dealer too at the time. He like, yo, little nigga, you ain't making no money, right? He said that while I was walking past him, and I'm like, what? And he pulled out a couple of stacks, and I'm like, what? I go in my pocket, I pulled out my money, I start counting nothing but hundreds. He like, that's G Money right there. He like, this little nigga is walking around with G Money. And so that name kind of stuck with me. People thought that I had got it from the movie uh, New Jack City, but that wasn't it. You know what I mean? It was actually an older guy from my community. So yeah, I hate to break this up, but I do have to jump off. It's so needed.
Always have us wanting more. I haven't had one like this that we've only touched the surface. So we definitely gonna do it again. Man, I want you to be blessed. We gonna talk again. We got more to talk about. When you get off that line, we gonna wrap if you got time.
Yes, sir. We definitely gonna chop it up again, my brother. This was an honor and a privilege, and I definitely enjoyed it. I love your questions. I love your energy. You know what I mean? We definitely got to do this again, my brother. All right?
For sure, for sure. Be blessed out there
All right. Same to you, my brother. Have a blessed one, man.
too.
Peace and blessings.
Some blessings. You guys have made it to the end. I thank you for making it to the end. I'm going to do it again, but I want you guys to make sure that wherever you're listening or even watching, please go over to the YouTube, put a face with the name. That brother was overseas. I'm not going to tell his country yet because he's moving and about. But we might do this in South Africa, New York, or Asia next. You guys, tap in. This whole thing is to show you how, no matter where you are, wherever your brother's at, your uncle's at, to show you how you can win too. So I want y'all to win from Soweto. Hey, stand up again, Soweto. All of South Africa, Midrand. Yeah. When I go, I really go places. East Rand, what's happening? I really, I bring my whole family to East Rand. Shout out to Chris, Anastasia, and everybody who hooked us up out there in East Rand. But I want you guys to really tone in on this game. This whole AI thing is changing things in a great way. I'm a full-time consultant. This is what I do. So I'm loving it. I love that conversation. I can't wait to bring you more because I want to talk about his clothing company that he has overseas. You guys, do me a favor. Like the game. Most importantly, though, share this game. It will change somebody's life. Y'all be blessed.
Are you tired of the rat race in America? Are you ready to visit the motherland to relax and rejuvenate? Are you ready to explore all that Africa has to offer? Then check out the brand new Diversified Game Academy course, Prepare for My First Trip to Africa. Are you worried about being able to afford the trip? We got you. We will show you how to travel either on a budget or as a baller. Learn how to stress the value of the USD, Did you know that 100 United States dollars is worth over 1,000 South African rand, or 10,000 Kenyan shillings, or 54,250 West African CFA? Are you worried about taking your kids? Get the game from Kellen Cash, a bona fide world traveler, having traveled to almost 20 countries, several of those in Africa. Get the game on taking your kids on their first trips. Learn how to find the best tickets, get the visas, and plan your own adventures in Africa. Don't let Eddie Murphy have all the fun. Plan your own coming to Africa trip starring you, produced by you, and featuring you. If you are ready for a life-changing experience, sign up for our course today, Diversified Game Academy. Get prepared and purchase at diversifiedgame.com.